Hi everybody. Welcome to Module 6. So I do want to do an overview of what's happening this week. So here are your instructions, and I'm going to walk you through what I'd like you to do. So we're going to look again once more at the learning outcomes for this course. All right, so we are approaching the end of this course. We have this module and then one more instructional module, and then it will be time for you to pass things in. Okay, so as you'll be working on your unit plan and working to complete that. I'm happy to give more feedback on it if you want, and I've included a submission tab here, and I'll show you that in a minute, if you want to submit any other lesson plans that you would like me to look at. For your unit plan, this is the checklist that you want to look at. You're going to need a rationale for the unit, and I'll explain that in a second. There's an item here that we're going to look at. An appropriate unit plan template, that's your UBD. You've been working on those and doing lots of revision. I've been working with a fair amount of you doing Google Hangouts and emails and phone calls and office visits. So if you have any questions, please let me know, because you are going to be submitting this for a grade. So if there's any hesitancy about whether you have it correct or not, let me know. I'm happy to give you more feedback. So when I say appropriate, that means appropriately revised and aligned with standards. Okay. A scope and sequence for the unit. That's just the thumbnail sketch of each day. And then detailed lesson plans for each lesson of the unit. So each day of your unit, you're going to flesh out into a working unit plan. So, and my gold standard for these are that if a substitute teacher came in, he or she could pick up that lesson plan and teach that class. All right, so we wouldn't be watching movies or kids be goofing around. We wouldn't be losing instructional time. The substitute teacher would be able to follow your directions. So it needs to be that detailed. Okay. Formative assessments should be included within those lesson plans. You don't have to pull those out, but in the lesson plan, when you are administering a formative assessment or you're doing an observation, please note so I know that that's happening organically. And then performance-based summative assessments with appropriate proficiency-based rubrics aligned with the standards you selected for the unit. This goes back to your UBD. Don't forget your UBD, people, in this, because the standards that you put in that UBD are the standards you're going to assess. All right. I haven't looked at the rubrics, but I will. After tomorrow, I'll start reading your rubrics and giving you feedback on that. But remember, they are proficiency-based. Okay, that doesn't mean that you can't add things that aren't part of the standards. You could, however, have a separate checklist for things that are not included in the standard. That's perfectly acceptable, but it can't be part of the proficiency-based standards assessment. And then an appendix of handouts. So if you're giving some handouts, you're using graphic organizers, you're giving some worksheets, instead of putting those in the lesson plan, refer to it as, students will be completing the handout on, quadratic equations. Please see Appendix B, whatever it is. Okay, label your appendix, with letters, and then refer to those in your unit plan. So I can flip back to the appendix. It gives me a more seamless read. When I look through the lesson plan, I can see the flow better. If I'm interrupted by looking at handouts along the way, it's sort of jarring. So put them in an appendix. If you don't have electronic copies, scan them, because I want everything electronically. I do not want people mailing me things. Okay, and I prefer to have this submitted as one document rather than several. It's very much, anyway, it's very confusing if I've got to open up several different documents. So if possible, please combine these into one document that I can open. Word is the best, people. If not, put it in a Google Doc and give me the link so I can get there. And Pages is okay, but I'd prefer not, because I have Pages, but it's kind of clunky as far as I'm concerned. So I prefer a Word or a Google Doc. Don't give me a PDF, because I can't make comments on it. It's very difficult to do that. All right. If it's the only route you have, let me know, but you should be able to do a Google Doc. So I mean, that's everybody has access to that. So a Google Doc or a Word document, please. So that's your unit plan. All right, and that's going to be due on module 8. Okay, so that's in December, but that's coming up. It's not too far away. So you need to continue working on your unit plan. Again, I'm not asking you to pass in any more lesson plans for a feedback unless you want me to. I'm giving you feedback on the ones you passed in. I hope that feedback is enough to guide you in creating the other lesson plans, but if you want more assistance, I'm happy to give it. Please remember, as you examine your unit of study, look at it through the lens of the learning outcomes. So within those lesson plans, have you created developmentally appropriate instruction? That's looking at differentiation. It's looking at the age of your students so that you're not trying to teach post-secondary material to a ninth grader. Designed instruction based on learners' prior knowledge and experiences. This is the front loading. This is doing whatever you have to do to know where students are. This is the pre-test, the pre-quizzes. This is learning who your students are and where they are. So have you built into your unit plan ways to find out your students' background knowledge, their prior knowledge, and where you need to begin with your teaching? Have you engaged learners in collaborative and self-directed learning? Okay, very important. Have you extended learner interaction with ideas and people locally and globally? This is something that people always forget. And I brought it up before when we looked at the learning outcomes again. So I'm bringing it up again. Make sure you have extended learner interaction with ideas and people locally and globally. Okay, so I'm going to add a word here, and or globally. Okay, so as long as your students are connecting with the community somehow, they're working with people in the school perhaps, they're doing a presentation to peers outside their classroom, some way of extending that learner interaction. All right. Have you used multiple representations and explanations that capture key ideas? Okay, so you're not just using one methodology of teaching, you're using several different ways of teaching. You've guided learners through learning progressions. Okay, so in other words, you're working with Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, where you're beginning where students are, and you're guiding them along, okay, with that model of gradual release through those learning progressions, and introducing, new material as they master material. Okay, so it's a progression. Have you designed projects that guide learners in analyzing the complexities of an issue using perspectives from varied disciplines and cross-disciplinary skills? So are you looking outside of your silo for helping students to think how this relates to other disciplines? So if you're doing a social studies unit, have you helped connect students with what this means in English language arts, or what this means in civics, or what this means in the scientific world, or whatever. But make sure that you've got some very disciplined and cross-disciplinary skills that are being used here, all right? Have you designed assessment that match learning outcomes? This is huge, okay? Have you looked at those standards, okay? Those standards that you have, is your assessment aligned with that? I can't emphasize that enough, because that's where people always lose points, okay? Or they don't meet you don't meet the standard. So your standard 6 is very important in the teaching standards, and if you don't design your assessments that match your learning outcomes, you're not meeting that standard. Have you sequenced learning experience? Again, this connects back to guided learners through learning progressions, but have you set up your unit plan so that it does sequence, so that you're not introducing too difficult material at a time where you haven't sequenced for that, or not difficult enough material, okay? Or you make sure you're challenging students in the right way. Have you provided multiple ways to demonstrate knowledge and skills throughout the unit? So have you provided different ways for students to show that they're understanding what you're asking them to do? Have you provided multiple ways for them to demonstrate mastery? These are the standards on which our unit of study will be evaluated. So please pay attention to those, okay? Writing a rationale. So I want you to write a rationale that indicates why you chose the content of your unit, how and why you chose the particular assignments, activities, and teaching strategies, what cross-disciplinary features you've incorporated and why, and how you've provided authentic connections to the world outside the classroom. This will help you to really focus on those standards. Writing that rationale, you're going to have to explain where these things are in your unit of studies. This will help me, when I read your rationale, to know what you feel you're doing to reach those standards, okay? And then I can have a better idea. This should be the preface to your entire unit of study. I don't need to see it prior to your final submission unless you want me to see it, but it won't make a lot of sense to me if I don't have the whole unit. The rationale is required but not graded. So in other words, it's not a separate grade for this rationale. It's part of that unit of study grade. And it's meant to help me, okay? And you as well. So make sure that you have that completed. I know people are going to say how many pages. I don't know. How long does it take you to do it? 1, 2? I wouldn't say more than 2 pages, but maybe. But I don't want to see a 12-page paper for sure. All right, and so this week is our topic is about relationships. So here's an item on getting to know your students, and this is crucial. None of this will work if you don't get to know your students. So please take the time to read the resources I've given you. Look at these two resources for interest inventories and questionnaires, and think about ways in which you will get to know your students, okay, and develop good relationships with them. I'm not asking you to do anything with this. I'm not asking you to pass something in. This is for you, for your personal and professional enrichment. The same thing with classroom organization, all right? How will you organize your classroom? There are too many classrooms that I walk into that look like this one, from the 19th century, with teacher in front of the classroom behind a desk, as if the desk is some sort of shield to protect him or her from the students, with students lined up in rows. Now, sometimes it's appropriate to have students this way, but all the time, I would suggest no. So think about what your classroom will look like. How will you have students work, and how will you work with them and not seem to be always the sage on the stage, but be that guide on the side. And then rules, expectation, and motivation. So again, think about what your rules will be. Who will make your rules? What does your rules say about you? Motivation is key as well, and this is huge. We could do a whole class on motivation. I've given you an article here by Rick Wormley. You probably know Rick Wormley's one of my favorite authors. You've been reading quite a bit by him about motivating young adults. Okay, so do read that. Now, this from ASCD. Okay, I forgot that ASCD magazine Educational Leadership is available in the library, and it is. So you can actually access that. This is the edition that you can get online, but some of the articles are locked. So if you want to read some of those locked articles, you just need to go to the UMA library to access this, and you'll be able to get them all. But in the meantime, there was an article I really thought was really crucial. It's called 4 Secret Keys to Student Engagement. So I've summarized it here for you. About compliance doesn't mean engagement, and oftentimes we think that the compliant student, we like compliant students. They're quiet, they do what they're told, they don't give us any trouble, but are they engaged? Probably not. So I'd like you to read my little synopsis here about what it means to have engaged students rather than compliant students. And then here are your reading assignments. Some of you are off the hook. Some of you have completed what you've been doing. And then here is the professional development plan. Sorry about that. My phone was ringing. I stopped to answer it. So here is your discussion forum. Again, read all those great articles and have a discussion about it. Okay. And then professional development plan. Remember this? We talked about this at the beginning of the semester. So now that we're nearing the end, I want you to look carefully at the main Common Core teaching standards. Those are the INTAST and the ISTE-NET-TEAS. They're linked in your syllabus. I've been talking to you about the learning outcomes for this course as we've been going along. But you've been taking other courses as well. And so hopefully you've been thinking about these standards for quite some time. And I want you now to develop a professional development plan. This would be the standards that you feel that you still need to do some work on, okay? And I want you to choose at least 3. You can look at the broad anchor standards, but I'd like you to look beyond that to the performance indicators and kind of pull out something there that you really think you want to work on, okay? So it might be a standard 6 assessment, but it might be, one of those indicators. So I want you to be kind of granular on this. I want you to drill down into the standard and look at the performance indicators and our critical dispositions and essential knowledge. There are 3 different pieces there on the INTAST standards. About what you feel you need to do more work on, you need to do some resources on it, or what have you. Those of you going on to student teaching, you'll take this professional development plan with you to your student teaching, and we'll work on it in student teaching. Those of you who are already teaching, this is a good thing for your professional development where you are. So you'll all have to do it, okay? I've given you the template here, and then I've given you a sample. So you shouldn't have any problem doing that. It's pretty straightforward. Again, continue working on your unit plan. It's due on Module 8, which is the last module. Your field observation, okay, you should have completed that by now. I still don't have some CHRCs and risk and release from people, so please get those to me. And then I expect to see your field observation narrative in this submission box November 11th. Okay, that gives you a little bit of time. Professional development plan by November 18th. And then here's the open feedback tab that I said was voluntary. If you want feedback on something, submit it here. And please, in the comments, tell me what kind of feedback you want. Give me some explanation. Don't just give it to me blindly, because I need to know what you want me to do with it, okay? So give me some information. In terms of the field observation, let's go up over here so you can look at it again so you know what I'm expecting. All right, so I want a narrative. Okay, once you've accumulated your 20 hours, synthesize your experience into one narrative using headings for each of the areas observed. Okay, so in this observation report form, there are headings. So put those headings into your narrative and then write a reflection about what happened to you, what you saw and what you believe about that. Okay, all right, I think that's it, folks. Let me go back to this. And there we are. I think that's it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great week.